Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So welcome to the second episode dedicated especially to my fellow atheist and skeptics friends, to those who are following my channel, and especially to those who took their time to write the comments on my latest video. I really got pleasantly surprised, and I'm very grateful and thankful for all the comments that were left, because once again, these comments just further corroborate my position that no, online atheists, most of them are very offensive. Like they attack, they mock Christians especially, and they have no clue about what they're talking about when they are talking about like burden of proof, when they're talking about how defining atheism, when they're talking about like trying to disprove or bring arguments to disprove, in this case, what I was talking in this video. No, I had an example of the cosmological argument, and many atheists attack the premises or attack that. Again, this further proves that what I talk about in the video is actually correct, that atheists either have a complete misunderstanding or they strawman Christianity, they strawman the Bible to then be able to attack it and to tear it down and to prove, yeah, see, evidence, science has proven the Bible wrong, or this Christian belief is false because we have evidence of this, and so forth. And so again, I'm thankful. I try to engage with as many comments as I could. Thank you also for those who supported me in the comments. And I try to engage with almost all of them. YouTube has hidden or has deleted some comments because they were extremely inappropriate or offensive. And also I had to delete and hide certain comments because they were, again, they started to be like spam, or again, it was very bad, for the channel overall. So that's why, like, I've kept most of the comments. I've kept them because, again, I really find that these comments can help whoever is gonna watch the video and then read the comments to actually see that what I'm talking about is actually true, and the comments actually are proving me right. So again, I'm thankful. Thank you for all of you who took your time to write the comments, and again, thank you for exposing a very common thing that I've seen lately happening. The fact that atheists cannot even define atheism in a consistent way. You're gonna find these multiple conflicting sometimes definitions of atheism. You're gonna find some people claiming that it's a belief, some people saying no, it's not a belief, other people saying that it's a lack of belief, other people saying that no, it's not even a view, it's not even a position, it's the default view of every human being, that everyone is born atheist. And you're gonna find all this confusion happening, and the atheists like defining themselves as those who lack belief in the evidence, or they're not convinced of the arguments for God's existence, and that's why they're atheists, right? And they don't have to prove anything because their position is not even a belief, so they don't have to say anything. But then at the same time, they are trying to bring arguments, trying to bring evidence that disproves the Bible, or that proves that Christianity is wrong or false, or that prove that the existence of God is not necessary or is not true. And so it's very interesting, right? Because you're both asserting one thing. Yeah, I don't need evidence in a sense because I'm lacking the belief in your evidence, so you have to provide the evidence. But then at the same time, they are making arguments, they're making claims, so they're taking a certain position, a view, right? So they're denying having a view, having a belief, having a position, and then at the same time, they're having a position, they're making claims, they're presenting arguments. So it's very confusing for my fellow atheist friends and skeptics. And again, this is going to be a video just trying to encourage you to think. Atheists really think very critically about the evidence, the arguments that theists are producing, and they are very not convinced by those. But my question is, why? Why are you not convinced by that evidence? Have you ever been critical about your own beliefs, about your own view and position? Have you ever questioned the fact that you're an atheist? Have you ever reasoned about that? Right? Because I believe that many atheists do not. They very simply use very common catchphrases, very common arguments that have been already debunked, or at least disproven a lot of times, but just keep asserting those as if saying it a lot of times just make it true. And again, they're very confused because even between themselves they can't figure out which is the correct definition of atheism and what it really means to be an atheist. And that's what I wanted to do this video, hopefully to make you think, to make you be critical about your own position, about your own view, because it is a view, it is a position, and therefore it has burden of proof. You have to defend and to give reasons as to why, in this case, you find the evidence or the arguments that the theists are bringing forth for the existence of God, why you find them unconvincing. The reasons, they have to be valid reasons, right? So again, that's something that you have to prove. You can't just say, well, I'm unconvinced, therefore it's all on you. Because in other words, it's like you're saying I'm an atheist because theists have failed to produce enough evidence for God. Or if there was a deity, it would have given me enough conviction that he exists. So I'm an atheist because there are not these things. So in a certain way, you're not even responsible for being an atheist. It's someone else's fault. It's the Christian's fault, or it's the theist's fault, or it's God's fault. And again, this, I don't think it's a very intellectual, honest position. And it's just an attempt, very modern attempt, to shift the definition to just make sure that the atheist always has an escape route, doesn't have to provide evidence, doesn't have to, in a sense, explain why they're not convinced. Just merely saying that they're unconvinced means that they have won, right? And they have this, again, this presupposition that everyone is born an atheist, or that atheism is a default view, and therefore, it's all on the theist to prove the atheist wrong. And again, this is not how philosophy works. If you look at Google and just look for atheism dictionary, even atheist dictionary, you're gonna find this definition that says here, this is taken from Oxford Languages, that atheist is a person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of God, right? Very interesting. And atheism as disbelief or lack of belief in the existence of God or gods. But is this the classical and the standard way in which atheism has been defined? And it's very easy to notice that it is not, because if you just keep scrolling and you actually read definitions from, for example, Cambridge, for example, Merriam-Webster, Oxford Reference, Dictionary.com, Oxford Learning, you just look at all these other definitions, you're going to see that, yes, some dictionaries adopt this more modern view, but most of them actually adopt the fact that you're actually not believing in the existence of God, right? So it's not like you lack belief or you don't have belief, but like you actively, you don't believe, so you choose to not believe, right? It's a choice. And or the belief that no God exists. In other ways, you can say, I don't believe that God exists, or you can say, I believe that God does not exist. It's the equivalent, right? It's the same. It's saying the same thing. Again, here Cambridge, again Merriam-Webster actually adopts this more modern view because he has been updated very, very recently. Oxford Reference was, again, theory or belief that God does not exist, so he has the most standard one. And most of dictionaries are going to actually have this definition as the belief that there is no God, or this active not believing that God exists, but it's like an active thing. It's not merely a lack of or a suspension of judgment, right? It's actively. And again, if you want to keep reading, you're going to see that many of dictionaries are going to actually present this definition. And if we look actually at the Stanford philosophy dictionary, you're going to actually find the whole representation, which I think is very, very good. So that's why I'm going to try to read it with you all. And it says here, definitions of atheism. The word atheism is polysemous. It has multiple related meanings. Right? So again, here, this could be dangerous, right? Because depending on the context, the situation, the atheist could use one meaning and then could use another meaning, right, just to justify itself, or just to conveniently have their position to be more easy to defend. So again, this could be, problematic, and that's why the article that says, in the psychological sense of the word, atheism is a psychological state. So it refers very simply to your psychological state. So what you believe, your mind, right, your attitude. It's not referring to claims, objective claims about reality. So whether there is a God or there is not a God, but it's referring to your attitude towards reality. Specifically, the state of being an atheist, where an atheist is defined as someone who is not a theist. An atheist is defined as someone who believes that God exists or that there are no gods. This generates the following definition. Atheism is the psychological state of lacking the belief that God exists. In philosophy, however, and this is the important part, that I really want my atheist friends, if they keep watching this video, to just keep watching it. It says here, and more specifically in the philosophy of religion, the term atheism is standardly used to refer to the proposition, claim, affirmation that God does not exist, or more broadly, the proposition that there are no gods. Thus, to be an atheist on this definition, it does not suffice to suspend judgment on whether there is a God, even though that implies a lack of theistic belief. Instead, one must deny that God exists. This metaphysical sense of the word is preferred over other senses, including the psychological sense, not just by theistic philosophers, but by many, though not all, atheists in philosophy as well. So even atheist philosophers actually are against this more modern definition and reinterpretation of atheism as being merely a disbelief or lack of belief in the existence of God, and they're saying, no, you should use this proposition this other way in which it's actual claim. It's a proposition, right? It's not anymore very simply a lack of belief. It's a psychological state. It's actually making an affirmation, an objective truth claim about reality, right? And that's why in philosophy it's very important, because no one cares about your feelings or about psychologically what you believe to be true or what you don't believe to be true. It's all about the objective truth claims, how they apply to reality and how you defend those, right? And look here, it says, for example, Robin Lee Poidevin, which is an atheist philosopher, says, an atheist is one who denies the existence of a personal, transcendent creator of the universe, rather than one who simply lives his life without reference to such being. Another one, J.L. Schellenberg, says that in philosophy, the atheist is not just someone who doesn't accept theism, but more strongly someone who opposes it. And again, this is a phrase that I think I'm gonna copy and put in my YouTube channel, because again, so many atheists are gonna define themselves as that. Well, I don't accept your claims. I don't believe your claims. I don't find them convincing. I don't find your evidence, your arguments convincing. Therefore, that's why I'm an atheist. But that's not how the word is defined, and it should be defined, especially when we're talking about philosophy. So we're talking about arguments. We're talking about not just saying your opinion or saying you believe or saying your psychological state, right? But affirming, making objective truth claims about reality. So whether there is a God or there is not a God. So in other words, it says here, this denial of theism. So atheism is the denial of theism, the claim that there is no God. And if you keep reading, it says here, this definition is also found in multiple encyclopedias and dictionaries of philosophy. For example, the Concise Routledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy, William L. Rowe, also an atheist, writes, atheism is the position that affirms the non-existence of God. It proposes positive disbelief rather than mere suspension of belief. And again, I'm going to put this quote on my channel once again, because again, it's an atheist, right? So many atheists online, or they're going to say, well, it's just a negative position. No? I'm just negating what you're claiming. I'm just not convinced by that. So it's not a positive thing. I don't claiming anything. I don't claim. So I don't have to defend why I'm not convinced, which is just very dishonest and just refers to your own psychological state. It's not even affirming about the objective truth or falsity about the evidence that the thesis is proposing. And you can see another one. The Cambridge Dictionary of Philosophy recognizes multiple senses of the word atheism. So again, the fact that in this psychological state, it could be defined that the atheist is a person that lacks belief. But it's clear about which is standard in philosophy. Atheism is the view that there are no gods. A widely used sense denotes merely not believing in God and is consistent with agnosticism in the psychological sense. A stricter sense denotes a belief that there is no God. Thus, this use has become standard. And therefore, if you wanna debate, if you go into Christian apologists, Christian videos, and you are typing there saying, no, you're wrong, or whatever, right? And you wanna mock Christianity, you wanna mock God, or whatever, remember, they are actually making arguments you're making a positive assertion, you have a positive belief, and therefore you should defend the belief. You shouldn't just say, well, I lack belief, I'm not claiming anything, I'm just unconvinced of what you are claiming. Yeah, so that's something that, remember, you should be doing. Many contemporary atheists, especially like Matt Dillahunty, Dan Barker, Aaron Ra, that are very famous in the online media and all that stuff, actually are permanently using this definition of atheism. Well, atheism is just suspension of judgment, lack of belief. So yeah, that's it. I don't accept your evidence. I'm not convinced by your evidence. Therefore, no, it's your fault. It's your fault why I don't believe in God exists, or it's God's fault why he hasn't made his existence more compelling, more convincing. The atheist is the default position, which of course is just false, because atheism is making a claim as a position about the view of the world, right? About reality. So that's why it should bring arguments. And again, atheists do bring arguments. So that's why I'm saying that they're very confused and it's an inconsistent view, because they're both saying, no, I don't have to defend my position. At the same time, they bring arguments to disprove the Bible, or to disprove Christianity, or to prove that no, science has trumped over God. And again, it makes no sense. And again, you can keep reading if you want to, but this is all gonna state the same thing. So yeah. Now I wanted to read once again. This is a Christian website. I'm gonna read afterwards a atheist website. So again, don't think that just because this is a Christian talking that it's gonna be false. I'm gonna also quote a atheist website, which again is gonna try to show that atheists do have a burden of proof about their belief, and they shouldn't like escape from argumentation. And once again, here it says that it's not uncommon to hear skeptics claim. So it's not uncommon to hear skeptics claim that the burden of proof is on the person making the claim. Atheists argue that because they don't make any positive claims, but rather simply fail to affirm the existence of God, they bear no burden of proof. And again, remember here what one of the definitions was by an atheist, right? That is a positive, this belief is a positive, it's a claim about reality. So again, you can't escape from this. So the theist is the one making a claim that God exists, so he does bear such a burden, they say. I think this line of argumentation is faulty. Atheism is not simply the absence of belief. It does involve making claims, which they do. And that's why I said before that it's inconsistent, because they both affirm that they lack the belief, or that they don't have to provide, they're just unconvinced by the evidence. But at the same time, they're making claims and bringing arguments to disprove God, or to disprove Christianity or the Bible. And again, this makes just inconsistent, right? And now here, as it keeps going, well, it defines atheism, right? And especially the AAA, so the American Atheist Association, which says here, atheism is not affirmative belief that there is no God, nor does it answer any other question about what a person believes. It is simply a rejection of the assertion that there are gods. Atheism is too often incorrectly defined as a belief system. And again, look here, they're even saying that it's not a belief, right? To be clear, atheism is not the belief in God or denial of God. It is a lack of belief in gods. And again, so they're even saying that it's not even a belief, and shouldn't be defined as a belief system, which it's just insane, how they're not even understanding the basics of like both dictionaries and the basics in philosophy, like how atheism has always been viewed in philosophy and why it should be viewed in that way. Because if you define atheism in this way, do you know what the theist can do? The theist can do, well, you see, you're rejecting my claims because psychologically you don't convince by them. Okay, that's fine. You know what this does? It doesn't disprove my evidence. It doesn't disprove the existence of God. It doesn't disprove my arguments. It just shows that subjectively, personally, you're not convinced by those. But their subjective truth claims are completely irrelevant to objective truth claims. The theist is producing an objective truth claim. The atheist is saying, I don't believe that because I'm not convinced, because I lack the belief in that. But that's a psychological state, as we read before in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. right? And because it's very simple psychological state, well, that just denotes that you personally do not believe, but it doesn't say anything about objectively the evidence being false or being wrong. It just say that you are not convinced by it. Okay, that's fine. So again, imagine if theists would do this. Atheists would just get super crazy, super angry. Oh no, wow, and or say you don't understand atheism. How atheism is defined, and whatever. But look here, what the article says. There are several problems here. First, this definition is contrary to the way the term ism historically has been used in the philosophical discussions, and also how it's used right now. Philosopher William Rowe states, to be an atheist in the broad sense is to deny the existence of any sort of divine being. Similarly, Graham O.P. writes, atheism says there are no gods. J.J.C. Smart concurs, atheism means the negation of theism, the denial of the existence of God. Paul Draper states that atheism is best understood in philosophy as the metaphysical claim that God does not exist. Angelo Schellenberg, which I already read before, defends a similar definition of atheism understood as disbelief of traditional theism. And look here what it says. Even the AAA partially concedes what it says. Older dictionaries define atheism as a belief that there is no God. However, the AA statement then dismisses this idea by suggesting theistic influence taints these definitions, like as if saying that theists have influenced this definition of theism, of atheism, therefore that's why it's false. And again, remember that theism is the affirmation that exists. Atheism is no God, without God. That is the root of in the Greek. So again, of course, there is first theism and then atheism, the denial of that, right? No, without. And again, here it says, yet the above quotes aren't from outdated dictionaries. They are from contemporary publications. Nor do any of them come from theists. So this is why the AA Association actually is saying wrongly. It's saying a false thing. They are the definitions given by today's most prominent critics of theism. So both agnostics or atheists. Leading critics of theism and defenders of atheism currently define atheism as the belief that there is no God. And again, this is just plain. If you don't recognize this or you don't accept it, well, you have issues with other atheists. And again, even if we would concede this, then we will have to say, what is the difference between an agnostic and an atheist? There is no difference. Under this new definition or interpretation of atheism, if atheism simply is a lack of belief, a suspension of judgment, a negative assertion about the existence of God or gods, then how is this in any way different from the agnostic? From someone saying, yeah, I don't believe that God exists, nor I believe that God does not exist. I'm neutral, right? That would be fair in a sense. Even though it's still a position, it's still a belief, it's still a claim, therefore it has to bring evidence as to why you don't believe one or the other, right? You still have to bring, it's still a view, it's still a position, so you have to defend it. But at least, the agnostic says, I neither believe nor I disbelieve. I neither say that God exists nor I say that God doesn't exist. But the atheist is opposed to theism. The atheist negates the existence of God. The atheist says, no, there is no God. That's what they say, and that's why they oppose it. And that's why you find people writing so many comments. Otherwise, it would make no sense, right? And if you just suspension of belief, why are you opposing it then, right? If you just merely lack the belief because there is not convincing evidence according to you, then why are you so keen? And you have so many forums, you have so many videos, you have so many books being written about atheism and about theism and attacking God, attacking Christianity, attacking the Bible, right? It makes no sense. And again, there would be no difference between theism, an atheist and an agnostic. But again, this is not surely the case. And now if we go to an atheist website, I don't know if you guys know this one. I've read some papers, they're pretty interesting, but again, they just repeat, the same usual arguments that atheists have. Some of them are pretty compelling. Some of them pretty well thought, pretty good. So they require a very specific way of refutation. But others are just silly, And again, in this case, the author is talking about the fact that within a proof, justification, and he's saying that, well, if you say that, well, I don't believe something, or you have no belief, then, well, you actually need to you have a burden of proof. They are differentiating here between the burden of proof of a claim and on a belief. So they're trying to say, yeah, on a claim, you need a higher burden of proof than, for example, on a belief. And again, this, all what they say here is just to reinforce the idea that how I was saying, that the fact that there is a burden of proof, like even if you say, okay, I lack the belief on that, is still a view, is still something. So you need to justify, right? You don't have to prove there is no God. You just justify why you don't believe one exists. So at least you need to do something. And that's why they say here that they bring these 9 points as to arguments, right, that explain why you find the evidence not convincing, or why you're an atheist, or why you lack the belief in the sense, in this way. So this is why I believe gods or gods do not exist. So at least this article is taking a position, is saying, no, you can't say that you merely lack belief, right? You are suspending belief. You're not convinced by the evidence, and you didn't need to even show why. At least they're saying, no, you have to show why. And they show these 9 points. It says here, overwhelming lack of credible, convincing evidence for any God's existence. That's their view, right? Multiple different God claims, no coherent and consistent definitions of God, even those who are a particular religion discussing the same God, which could be said the same about atheism, as I tried to prove in this video. But anyway, contrary testimony, so people saying one thing and then saying the opposite thing. Errors in holy books, be they scientific, historical, or moral, especially regarding the Bible. Models that work without the need of a God, or arguments put forward for gods contain some level of presupposition or fallacy, which of course, atheists have completely do not commit, right? Atheists do not have, according to them, do not have any presupposition, don't have any bias, any fallacy. And of course, this is silly because all arguments put forward for the fact that God does not exist also have levels of presupposition and fallacy and bias. No one is completely free from presuppositions and biases. Logical and evidential problem of evil and divine hiddenness. And again, they're bringing these 9. So you can see here, at least these are arguments as to why atheists should say, yeah, I'm not convinced by the evidence because of these 9 points. And again, the first one seems to be quite circular, right? Because you say, yeah, I lack the belief that there is credible evidence because there is lack of credible evidence for God's existence. It's like you're begging the question, right? You're assuming that your claim, in the sense your non-belief about the evidence, is not enough because of the fact that it's not enough. So again, yeah, it's very interesting that at least even an atheist website recognizes the fact that, yeah, you need some justification, you need some, you don't need to prove, right, as the philosophical sense, according to them, right, but still you need some justification. But as I said before, I tried that even this position, even though it's not as dishonest as simply claiming, yeah, I don't have to even justify my position, right, is contrary to the philosophical sense in which atheism is discussed even by fellow atheist philosophers and how it should be defined. That is actually something, a positive assertion. It's not merely saying I lack belief in or lack belief that God exists, but it's a proposition, it's a claim, and therefore it should be defended. Because again, as we know for burden of proof, if you make a claim, if you have a view, you have a position, you have to defend it. The only things that do not need defense are psychological states, as we said before, right? So if the atheist simply says, well, I'm not convinced by the evidence, yeah, you don't have to prove why you're not convinced, because that's just your psychological state. But psychological states don't say anything about objective truth claims, about the objective reality. They just show your personal psychological reaction to reality, or what you personally believe, but it's completely irrelevant to the actual objective truth of that particular thing. And again, so imagine an atheist says, yeah, I'm not convinced that God exists. So imagine this scenario. If God exists, right, and the atheist says, yeah, I'm not convinced that God exists, do you think that God disappears or stops existing just because the atheist says that God does not exist? Of course not. In the same sense, if you claim, yeah, I believe that I'm not convinced of the fact that, or I'm convinced that the fact that there is evidence for God's existence and God does not exist, the fact that you're convinced psychologically about the fact that God does exist when in fact he doesn't, is not going to make him pop into existence. It's not going to make him appear, right? So again, psychological subjective truth claims do not say anything about reality. Objective truth claims do. And that's why when theists said, yeah, God is the most reasonable conclusion reasonable explanation for all these arguments, for all these things that we have from our experience, from our knowledge about the universe, about how we think, about how we reason. The theist is using that. So he's saying, yeah, we are making objective truth claims. So we're making claims about God actually existing, not about what we believe about God existing, but about if God exists or not. So see the difference? And that's very, very important. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this second episode. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. And there are even forums here where atheists are going saying, do atheists bear the burden of proof in showing why or how the reasons presented by theists are unconvincing? Which is it's a very interesting question, and then you have people saying one thing, saying the other, and yeah, they're trying further define atheism, negative atheism, positive atheism, and again, it's more and more confusion. Some people instead are going to say, no, yeah, the atheist has to do this because of philosophical assertion, so you need to bring evidence as to that, or at least to justify your position. So yeah, you have to do that. So you have atheists both arguing between themselves of what they should be doing, and again, this just shows the very lack of in my view, like the lack of critical thinking. If a lot of atheists are atheists, they just repeat the same arguments, or they just believe the same things, but they're very skeptical about theists, about their arguments for God's existence, but they're not skeptical enough about what they believe, about what are their presuppositions, about what they consider to be true without any evidence. Yeah, again, this video is done just to hopefully have some of you who can think about these things, who can maybe be a little more critical. And if you're more interested in more, I have a lot of other videos where I talk about the reasonableness of Christianity, the arguments for God's existence, why it's more likely, why it's more reasonable to believe that God exists rather than God doesn't exist, and the truth of Christianity, especially the central claim of Christianity, that is the resurrection of Jesus, why that is the most important claim, and why Christianity hinges on that. And that's why it's so important, because if Jesus truly rose from the dead, then that means that he's God, he is what he claimed to be, therefore he's the truth, he's the standard, everything that he said was true, and therefore we can trust him, and we can trust him for our eternal salvation and for our forgiveness. And Christianity, explaining reality, explaining why there's so much evil, why there's so much suffering in the world, what's wrong with the world, what's wrong with human beings, and again, being very honest about our nature. Not trying to portray humans as gods or as good, but just presenting accurately and coherently reality. And again, there are many reasons as to why Christianity has evidence and has arguments for its favor. So if you're interested in that, I recommend you to either write or watch my other videos. And again, God bless you. Thanks for watching, and see ya. Bye-bye.